She was born of nationalism, to an effigy and to fire, with goat's milk in the white of her eyes, a languid river battle cry. She was a sewn-together patchwork of forgotten ethnicity, a wind-up toy stuffed with coarse tree-branch juniper bark memories. She was given an ocarina voice like vinyl records bouncing off mountain faces, and on her bow and arrow, pine bough shoulder, she carried half a dirty chromosome. He borrowed time from street lamps, stuck the punches, and stamped out the wildfires in his lungs. He bled wine that was sometimes tomato soup, and he was born of Johnny Carson. Backdoor gambling life away, heroin dependency at birth. They named him Suburban Angst because he was a beautiful sculpture of a man once screaming at authority. He carried half his dirty chromosome in a used condom, but they were two people bound to each other, spinal lock and key ribcage earth movers, and they never stopped being beautiful despite what happened to them. The child they made was born already a citizen. Wrapped in a blanket of authoritarianism, they wiped away the immigrant, cleaned off as much melanin as they could, but there remained this problem. Though he grew into himself, feasting on machismo accomplishment and affirmative action opportunity and a daily dose of Second Amendment multivitamin, deep in the furrows of his eyelids and the oversensitivity of his fingertips, to want to fight, there was catastrophe unfurling. He used to bite his nails to the quick just to make sure blood still came forth, and his heart would beat so fast he started counting down the seconds until it would finally give in. But these were just the symptoms. The disease to which those symptoms belonged manifested itself completely and all at once. In just a few seconds and in a few more octaves, he would be stripped of his citizenship, tied to a pole and stoned, beaten until he bled out his patriotic pride and trust in justice. The first words he spoke in his new voice came as a fluid electric shock rippling over still water. Why does it hurt to be lied to? He doesn't know, but he thinks it might have to do with the fact that he still can't bring himself to hold hands with, let alone kiss a man in public, but he's not sure. See, the synapses of his nerves were burned off and branded by this hateful system with the mark of his manufactured history. He used to like to talk. Never felt like God cringed at the tone his words wrapped themselves around when he spoke towards heaven. Never felt the ocean recoil when he wondered out loud how deep it was, and then later when he questioned why he couldn't just sink to the bottom of it. One nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all, pay special attention to God, to one, and to liberty. These are those words that lied to him through a painted-on smile that were the rope around his wrists bound and the weight to the stone's throne, because God turned into country, and country wasn't quite what it used to be. Country was a death sentence, wrapped in elegant false promises. Why does it hurt so much to be lied to? This country is an industrial factory of subjugation, and every day I wake up knowing that when I'm dying at exactly the rate you want me to, no medical insurance will cover me. So watch me bleed out this unfamiliar red onto your living room floor. Human rights must taste pretty bad at family dinner, I know. But when do I have to be contented with these guidelines for living carved into my chest like commandments, when even God has turned a blind eye to my humanity, that this is all I'll ever have? The man and the woman, they made a beating heart. A billion cells wrapped in paper, concrete, sometimes leather, come forth breathless to mouth the gospel of his condition. He bled wine that was sometimes tomato soup, sang mountain songs to faces that never changed, never looked in his direction. I can still taste the water they boiled me in, and I never asked to be made like this. I never asked to have to reassure myself that I'm not worthless, but worth at least the weight of all that living I've done and all this living I hope I have left to do. I wish I could have felt unconditional love. But the knowledge that I never will is the sick beauty of this. It's the key bent irremovable into the lock of my spinal vertebra. It's me begging to be heard again, and us slipping through the cracks in their floorboards again, and there will always be an us, and there will always be a them, and that is so heavy. And sometimes, when the weight of that unjust truth bends me into less than my half-size possibility, I lay buoyant in the ocean, with my eyes towards God's back and his eyes towards everyone else's, and I cry a cycle. I cry because at once, those tears can flow down the mask of this person and join salt water and know what it is to belong. And I cry because I'll never know what that might feel like.